Now, the aide of the TMC minister, Partha Chatterjee, Arpita Mukherjee, has now been detained. This is after he was arrested earlier today, a short while ago. Now, I'm crossing over to my colleague, Sugata Mukhopadhyay, to give us more details on this. Sugata, we now are learning that Arpita Mukherjee, the aide, has been detained. Tell us more.
Well, you see, Arpita Mukherjee was the person on whom that huge amount of cash, that huge stash of cash was found, some 21 crore rupees in cash found at her residence in the Tollygunge area of South Kolkata. And besides that, a huge number of mobile phones were also recovered from her. Documents pertaining to some 8 to 10 properties have also been recovered. That's what ED sources are telling us at this point in time. And also, jewelry, gold and diamond jewelry worth around 50 lakh rupees have also been found from her residence. Now, Arpita Mukherjee, an actor of sorts, and because she isn't quite a regular actor in any of Bangla or other regional movies, but she has been acting in some movies off and on, and that has been her identity foremost. But obviously the kind of money, the kind of property wealth that has been recovered from her residence is obviously inconsistent with the kind of pay that she is normally supposed to receive, is what the ED officials are telling us. So obviously she has now been detained. The question is whether she has been directly linked with Partha Chatterjee or not is yet to be established, at least officially, by the Enforcement Directorate. Back to you.
All right, now, Sugata, what I wanted to ask you was, now multiple raids have been conducted by the ED in West Bengal. This is now the aftermath of those raids where 20 crores were recovered from Arpita's residence. Now, give us more details about what we're expecting to happen now, because Partha Chatterjee has been arrested. Essentially, the ED is going to be taking Chatterjee to court. Arpita has now been detained. What are we going to see happen over the next 24 to 48 hours?
Well, you see, Partha Chatterjee was arrested on grounds of inconsistencies in his statement. If compared to what Arpita Mukherjee had been telling the ED. So obviously, the inconsistencies that the ED found in the statements by Partha Chatterjee vis-a-vis that of Arpita Mukherjee were the grounds of arrest and detention of both these individuals. Obviously, in the next the next course of action for the Enforcement Directorate would obviously be to try and get those statements from both, probably make them sit face to face and get an idea as to where that money had initially come from, because Enforcement Directorate is only concerned with the money trail. It isn't really concerned with the criminality involved in this particular case. That's the job of the CBI, and rest assured that the CBI would be springing into action any time now. They are just probably waiting for the ED to complete its set of own procedures, and once that is done, the CBI would also come into play. Of course, we also are anticipating that the income tax may also be present in the whole scenario, in the whole framework of things, given the fact that such an amount of huge cachet of money, cash, was recovered from the residence of Arpita Mukherjee. So obviously, under the circumstances, all these agencies would come into play simultaneously. The ED would obviously try and understand the money trail and would try obviously to link that money with the purported scam, with that alleged scam that has happened. Obviously, the entire agency, the entire central bodies are working under the instructions, orders of the Calcutta High Court. So obviously, they have a lot of free hand at this point in time, and they would be using that free hand to establish that, first of all, the money trail, the criminality, the kind of criminality that was involved, the extent of that scam, how many people were actually affected by by that scam that has alleged to have taken place, and that is the procedure as far as the legal recourse is concerned. Of course, politically, this would assume a whole new dimension. Let me assure you, the BJP and the left have already announced programs to take to the streets and protest today across Kolkata and the rest of the state. The Trinamool Congress has so far distanced itself from Partha Chatterjee, saying that it has got nothing to do with the party per se, and the responsibility of defending themselves would befall the individuals concerned. And in this particular case, Partha Chatterjee is obviously the man in question. So one has to see how the politics develops around this. It is certainly going to be a very high-pitched political fight between the ruling Trinamool Congress dispensation, which is obviously in a back foot at this point in time, and the opposition, which have taken to arms, which have metaphorically speaking, of course, and are taking to the streets with sharpening their attack as much as possible against the Trinamool Congress. So one hand you'll have the investigative and the legal side proceeding. On the other hand, there would be the political developments that would take place from this point on. Back to you.
All right, now, Shikoto, I want you to stay with us because I also want to bring in our colleague Ashish to give us more details on this. Ashish, what are your sources telling you now that Arpita Mukherjee has been detained?
So as of now, no arrest that I can confirm. Arpita, only one arrest, that is Partha Chatterjee. He stands arrested as of now. So that is what I can confirm. But yes, she is still being questioned as of now. There are ED officials at her house. No explanation till now from where this cash has been generated. She is evasive during questioning, that is for sure. That is what my sources in the Enforcement Directorate tell me. Why 22 phones were lying at her house? What was the usage of those phones? Was it used only to make or receive calls regarding the SSC scam? That is what is going to be the part of the investigation that Enforcement Directorate is going to look at. But certainly a big embarrassment for the Trinamool Congress, reason being that Arpita Mukherjee is supposed to be one of the closest aide of Partha Chatterjee. Now, Partha Chatterjee, if you remember, this scam basically came to light when there were certain complaints, or you can say petitions, which were filed before the High Court, the Kolkata High Court. And the Kolkata High Court decided, yes, there should be an investigation by the Central Bureau of Investigation. The Central Bureau of Investigation registered an FIR, and subsequently, as we know, that Enforcement Directorate is a secondary agency. They cannot register a case unless there is an FIR registered. They registered an ECIR only when the court directed the CBI to register an FIR. So once the FIR was registered, the Enforcement Directorate registered an ECIR, and finally the Enforcement Directorate decided to raid certain locations to find out the truth behind the scam. 14 locations were raided since yesterday morning, and finally by evening there was a news break that came out that more than 20 crore rupees of cash has been found from a close aide of Partha Chatterjee. Now, Partha Chatterjee was the education minister at that point in time when this scam basically came to light, and then subsequently he was shifted from the education ministry to various other ministries, which include the Commerce and Industry Ministry of the West Bengal government, IT, and various other ministries he has in his possession. But interestingly, Arpita Mukherjee, who's supposed to be a close aide, 21 crore rupees in cash, foreign currency, gold, diamonds, phones, 22 phones, and whatnot. This is something which is disproportionate to the kind of income that she has shown in her income tax return. So there is no explanation of from where this cash has been generated. Now, interestingly, when this cash was found, when these raids were happening, there were certain packets which were found which was having cash in its in those packets, and those packets basically had the stamp of the Education Ministry of the West Bengal government. Now, this leaves everybody perplexed, because you and me or a common man would not have possession of those envelopes which has got the stamp of the government of India or the West Bengal government with the Education Ministry stamped on it. So, if that is, if those envelopes are lying in the house of Arpita Mukherjee, and those envelopes have got huge amount of cash, then obviously it's going to be very difficult for Arpita Mukherjee to answer from where this cash has been generated. So ultimately, yes, this has been found. This is the findings of the raids.